Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Before we get into the detail portion of the video, let's talk about the grading system I use. I currently only grade the offensive line. I give every lineman a grade on every play, and it's a pretty simple system that favors consistency over highlights. As we get into the regular season, my intention is to do weekly videos using these grades along with film breakdowns to discuss the performance of the offensive line. The basic grade is a 1. That means the player did their assignment and did it well. Despite what some people may believe, this is the case for most players, even backups or guys that you want to see cut. Offensive line is a thankless position group where failures get highlighted far more than the successes. When I first started doing this for my personal use about 2 years ago, I tried to make it as black and white as possible and just use ones and zeros. Of course, offensive line play isn't that simple, and I found myself spending too much time trying to make a clear decision on whether a player did or did not execute their assignment. Today, there's a possibility to get greater than 1 for an individual, but it's really rare. For example, a pancake alone wouldn't usually get a grade above 1 because whether the defender stayed on their feet or not really doesn't impact the end result of the play. Instead, it would be something like knocking one defender completely out of the play and then handling a second defender as well. The next most common grade after a 1, and maybe even more common than a 0, that I'll use is a grade of 0.5. Some examples of this would be a zone block where 2 linemen are attempting to combo block to the second level, but the first level defender splits the block. Or a play where one player is blocking down and another is kicking out to create a hole. If both players are on their block, but neither gets enough movement to open a lane, they'll both get a 0.5 grade. Unless I can make a clear determination on who messed up, I'll assign a 0.5 grade to both players so that neither is getting credit for doing a great job, but I'm also not taking away complete credit when it was a block that was okay. But when you have a combination of okay blocks, it doesn't always end up in a great play. And there's a possibility to get less than a 0 also. That would be something like a pass blocker getting bull rushed into the ground or completely whiffing on a block. A -1 is more common than a +2, but it's still not used too often. I used to just take the sum of all those grades and divide it by the number of plays graded to get a percentage. This worked for me because I understood the numbers behind it and what a good day looked like versus a bad day. However, I found that a lot of people looked at them like academic grades. As an example, if my plays graded added up to a 56 and he played 66 snaps, in that game the grade would be 85%. That comes out to a B in most academic grading systems. But I think we can all agree that 10 negative plays in a game is not an honor roll level game for an offensive lineman. At the end of last season, I started working on a conversion system that takes the same grade and converts it into a value between 1 and 10 that I think is going to work better when sharing my grades going forward. So that same 85% would convert to a 6.21 on the new scale. Now, with all that said, none of it matters in the grand scheme of things. What I put out here on YouTube or Twitter is still my opinion. It's not always going to be in line with the general consensus. Even though the overall grade is a calculation, there's obviously some level of opinion in the grading of the individual plays, which is why I've held out on sharing too much on the grading until now, so you've had the opportunity to watch some of my other videos and see how I look at the film to decide how much weight you want to put into my opinion when you're getting your fix of Dolphins content. All right, if you're still with me at this point, hopefully I've done a good job setting up the reason for this video, which is my opinion on who should be the starting right guard in 2024 based on what's on the roster today. Again, these grades are 100% mine. As the names appear below, they're going to be in the order of snaps played at the position in 2023. The overall grade for the offensive line in 2023 was 7.69. A grade closer to an 8 would be more ideal, but based on the carousel of injuries that Miami had in 2023, this was a pretty good job overall. If you're trying to figure out what an average lineman looks like, it would look very much like Austin Jackson. Yes, he had some really good performances in 2023, but he also had some not so good ones. I think his contract extension, which may have looked like a bargain, is probably pretty in line with the player that he is. This is a great scheme fit for Jackson, but he's still an above average run blocker who has some issues in pass protection. I think most people would agree that Teron Armstead is our best lineman, with the caveat, of course, when he's healthy. My grade reflected the same with him coming in at a team high 8.56. I don't think the next one is going to get too much debate either, and that's Connor Williams as our second best lineman with a grade of 8.19. Another one that's probably still following the consensus is that Robert Hunt was next on the list. While I do think that Carolina severely overpaid Hunt, he's still a very good player. And let's round out the 2023 projected starters with Isaiah Wynn. And this is where there might be some contention with the grades. Wynn started out solid, but I think he was hyped up too much based on the level of play we've come to expect at guard over the years as fans. If your average is 7.69, you're going to have some players who are above that mark and some players who are below. Wynn may have been able to raise that grade had he played a full season, but based on what he was able to do in 2023, he was a little below average. As you can see, these are what we were projected to be starters in 2023. And I had mentioned earlier this was ordered by the snaps taken. So you can see that only 3 out of our 5 projected starters took the majority of snaps in their respective position. And we all know that Armstead and Hunt missed noticeable time as well. As we fill in the players who did play the majority of snaps, we see that Lester Cotton played the majority of snaps at left guard and left a lot to be desired. I appreciate what Cotton has done, mainly because I'd hate to see what the alternative is, but he's just not athletic enough for this scheme. At center, we have everyone's favorite scapegoat, Liam Eichenberg. The grade isn't great, but I also like to add context where I can. And for Eichenberg, I would point out that his early season replacement of Williams was his first time playing center and his worst performance of the season. His second worst performance was week 13 when Eichenberg was the starting guard for the week that week. He was a starting guard for that week, and then he was forced to move back to center when Williams got injured. So he hadn't been preparing that position. And outside of those performances, Eichenberg was actually pretty solid. Kendall Lamb was our other left tackle with significant snaps. Keon Smith had a few snaps, but due to the low volume, I didn't include his individual grade. I think this grade for Lamb is in line with what was seen on the field. He was an okay player to fill in, but not someone you want starting for a full season. Robert Jones played less snaps at left guard than Cotton or Wynn, but you can see that his 7.82 grade is slightly above average. All right, so we've set the table for the main focus of this video, and hopefully along the way, I've given you a reason to believe in my suggestion for right guard. At right guard, there's a space open, and that's intentional. We'll come back to that. Despite what some may think, Eichenberg was actually solid at right guard, coming in almost right on the nose for the overall average. And Lester Cotton was actually able to grade pretty similar at right guard as well. One thing I kind of take from these grades is that right guard seems to be the easiest position on the Dolphins' offensive line, and that may be why they were okay letting Hunt walk in free agency without pursuing a high-level replacement. You can see that everyone who plays right guard in this offense grades out higher than the other positions they play. All right, we've drugged this out far enough. If I started from the top saying that Robert Jones graded out nearly as well as Robert Hunt, you might have turned the video off right away. Hopefully, I've provided enough context to at least convince you to consider this possibility. Like I said from the top, my grades reward consistency, and Robert Jones has been consistently solid every time he's given an opportunity with this team. My original intention here was also to provide a film breakdown of Robert Jones to help further my argument, but this video has kind of drug on a bit, so I think we're going to wrap it up here and film a breakdown of Robert Jones, maybe something for the future. I trust the trio of Mike McDaniel, Frank Smith, and Butch Berry to make the decision that's best for this team. They all have offensive line and run game backgrounds, and they know far more than what I do about these players and what they're going to ask them to do in this offense in 2024. So even if I miss the mark with Robert Jones in 2024, I'm optimistic that we'll see an increase in that overall grade of 7.69 as we move through the season. As always, thanks for watching. Leave a comment below, and we'll talk again soon.